When you hear the word manipulation, what do you think about? You most likely think of it as something negative. Kreia doesn't see manipulation as something negative or positive. In this video, I'm going to explain to you why that is, and why I agree with this outlook. There's a moment on Nar Shaddaa where the Exile feels the living force very strongly. That moment tells you pretty much everything you need to know about Kreia's teachings on manipulation.
Your thoughts are disturbed. I can feel them from a great distance, like a shiver running through you. It is Nar Shaddaa, the true Nar Shaddaa that you feel around you. It is this moon, with the metal and machines stripped away and the currents of the Force laid bare. What you feel is the echo of the minds of these creatures within the Force, their anger, their greed, their desperation. It is life. Strange? Perhaps. Perhaps not. It is but the vibration of minds driven by life's struggles. The struggle to feed, to take, to mate, to fight. It is the way of things.
People's actions, thoughts, emotions, just raw sentient instinct, all of it interconnected by this energy that surrounds and flows through all living things, thus binding them all together.
This is the Force, and all our choices, from the greatest to the smallest, affect each other, and the echoes travel.
Force sensitives like the Exile are able to feel this, and if they know how, they can manipulate it. It being the entire population. And with the conditions on Nar Shaddaa being what they are, it's no wonder that the Exile primarily feels anger and desperation. So when you ask Kreia about it, whether in terms of healing it or using it as a means of control,
one might as well heal the universe. One might as well move the universe, but such manipulation is possible, yes.
She makes no distinction between the two. Both are possible choices that one can make to pursue, and both require actions be taken in a similar way. But without action, nothing happens, correct? Only with action will something actually change.
Have you learned nothing? Healing is manipulation, and if you do not realize it yet, then you will discover that an act of healing depends largely on your perspective.
Kreia makes a profound statement that never occurred to me until I heard it. Everything we do can be described as manipulation in one way or another. But let's say we go by the written definition of the word. I asked at the very beginning, when thinking of the word manipulation, what do you think about? If you're anything like the Jedi Exile, you thought of the quote-unquote negative definition. To control or play upon by artful, unfair, or insidious means, especially to one's own advantage. Even within that definition, it isn't defined as being an act that would necessarily result in something negative for the collective. The intentions of the manipulator are also up in the air, something we'll get into in a bit. An act of healing requires action. Action that will result in transforming something from one state to another, thus manipulation. And in terms of Nar Shaddaa and what the Exile is referring to, would the results of that really be something that the Hutts or the Exchange would consider as healing from their perspective? What constitutes healing in this regard is also subjective.
The ability to heal is also the ability to harm, and the inability to heal what is damaged can also bring about harm.
It's different from medical healing, where something is altered and you return it to a state it was previously in. Which, by the way, is not what the Jedi Council did to Revell. They made his mind able to function again, but they didn't stop there.
I've heard some grim stories about the Dark Jedi interrogation techniques. They say the Force can do terrible things to a mind. Can wipe away your memories and destroy your very identity.
When Malak fired on the ship, you were badly injured. We thought you were dead. Your mind was destroyed, but I used the Force to preserve the flicker of life in your body. I brought you to the Jedi Council. They were the ones who healed your damaged mind.
The Jedi Council didn't restore your wounded mind, Revell. They merely programmed it with a new identity, one loyal to the Republic. They tried to make you their slave.
I wanted to tell you, but the Council forbid it. They were afraid you might return to the dark side if you discovered your real identity.
But now you know the truth, Revell. The Council has failed in their attempt to make you their pawn. The will of a Sith Lord is not so easily manipulated.
How would the Exile even go about healing a moon full of inhabitants? What if she decides that she wants to control them? What she would have to do may be different. but how she has to do it is very similar.
It requires that one be able to feel the critical point within the fractured mass, and know how to strike it in such a way that the echoes travel to your intended destination. Not in the sense you understand it. The ability to fool the minds of others, to dominate them on a massive scale that you speak of, is not achieved best through raw power.
The perfect slave is someone who doesn't even realize that they are a slave. They do exactly what you want them to do without ever noticing. Brute force can't make this happen. Kreia's talking about manipulation so complex, it can be extremely difficult to follow. She's not talking about giving money to charity and feeding starving children. She's talking about pulling the right strings at the right times that would eventually lead to changing the status quo of the entire population. Sometimes it could be the smallest and seemingly most inconsequential of actions. You might even have to do certain things that could be considered reprehensible. But in the end, no child may ever have to go hungry again.
From one act can come tremendous power when the echo has traveled as far as it can.
The only thing that could stop it is someone else's complex manipulation, either reversing it or creating a whole new status quo. Kreia used and manipulated every single person she ever came into contact with, all with purpose, all in the pursuit of a goal that she deemed too important not to achieve, even at a high cost.
It is said that the Force has a will. It has a destiny for us all. I wield it, but it uses us all, and that is abhorrent to me, because I hate the Force. I hate that it seems to have a will, that it would control us to achieve some measure of balance when countless lives are lost.
She wanted to create the conditions whereby the galaxy could be freed of the Force's manipulations that she saw as detrimental.
Countless murderers, slayers, assassins, born of war that has, as always, taught the wrong lesson.
But she's not teaching you to manipulate. There isn't any way to stop you from manipulating. She's teaching you to be aware of it, to be aware of the fact that your actions have consequences, to be aware of what those consequences can be, and to be aware that you can harness those consequences in order to benefit from them and achieve your goals, whatever they may be. From that point on, whatever you do with that awareness is up to you.
A lightsaber, any weapon, only achieves worth in how it is wielded, in the effort, in the struggle of one who holds it.
Manipulation is a weapon, like a lightsaber. On its own, it's nothing. Not good, not bad. Who uses it and for what makes all the difference. The Jedi Exile was someone who went 10 years disconnected from the Force due to a traumatic event. Kreia herself was surprised that the Exile could feel the currents of the Force on Nar Shaddaa.
I'm surprised you can feel it. I feared the damage to you had deadened you to such perceptions.
Even then, she could only feel it for a limited time. Zazkael is a Jedi Master. He can't help but feel it. From Mira we know what it's like to feel it while being completely untrained.
I can feel this planet. I can't shut it out. It's louder now, it hurts. All these people.
Like Kreia and the Exile, Zazkael knows how to handle it, but he feels it nonetheless. As a Jedi Master, he feels it a lot more often than the Exile. He might even feel it constantly.
I don't know why a Jedi would come here. There's so much noise on this moon.
Of course, it makes detecting a Jedi difficult.
But to be in a place where one drowns in the Force, why would a Jedi wish that?
A simple question, to which I ask another. Why should a Jedi want to hide?
But despite his supposed Jedi beliefs, he did nothing, not even in the smallest or most subtle of ways, to change anything on Nar Shaddaa.
And Zazkael, to hide upon Nar Shaddaa, yet blind yourself to all that happens there. So close to understanding the Force. So close to giving it up.
Calculated manipulation requires knowledge, intelligence, and wisdom. You need information to know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. You need the capacity to accurately predict what your action or actions will lead to. And most importantly, you need to fully comprehend whether or not you should do anything at all.
Manipulation is done through propelling events, or selected ones, into motion. It is done through teaching, through example, and through conviction.
Zeskayel required more than one of those attributes to be manipulated into action. He's had the teachings all his life, but it took the exile to propel events forward in a certain way to convince him to act. If the exile drew out the exchange by hindering their goals of enslaving the refugees, Zeskayel is given the example he needed to see.
I've watched you as you have traveled the refugee sector. I've seen what you have done, what I refused to do. Even exiled, you are more a Jedi than I. If anything, know that your actions have convinced me I can stand by and watch no longer while the exchange closes its grip on this sector.
If the exile draws out the exchange by attempting to support them in their operations, Zeskayel is filled with conviction and feels that he must do something.
I've been watching you travel this moon, and I've seen the damage you've caused. I may no longer be a Jedi, but I will see you answer for your crimes. I promise you. If anything, you should know that your actions have convinced me I can stand by and watch no longer. Whatever harm the exchange harbors against Jedi, I will not let another suffer for it.
You know, I'd forgotten all about that until I spoke to you about it on Korriban. Strange, considering my hate for them is what made me leave the Jedi. I think I've got to help myself first, before I can help anyone else. Maybe once that happens, I can work with the Jedi to make a difference. They may work slowly, but they do make a difference, don't they?
I have to somewhat disagree with Yuthura on this one. Earlier, I mentioned having to take a reprehensible action in order to achieve a worthwhile outcome. An issue I have with the Jedi is that they are unwilling to take those actions. You could argue that they are, using certain instances as examples. But that was the Jedi Council's doing. The same Jedi Council that teaches against doing things like what they did. The same Jedi Council that punished other Jedi for making a hard decision and doing what was necessary, or what they thought was right. This is why Zeskayel, if he chose to do something, might put out some fires on Nar Shaddaa, but he will inevitably hit a wall. Either the exchange or the Hutts will eventually put him in a situation where he has to make a decision that goes against his Jedi beliefs if he wants to achieve his desired outcome. Jedi argue that how you win a war is more important than actually winning the war. The Sith are the opposite, win by any means necessary. Both are wrong. The Sith would take things unnecessarily fought and create detrimental consequences they couldn't foresee, while the Jedi would allow genocide if it means they can go to their graves patting themselves on the back, basking in that oh so precious moral high ground. I consider manipulation to be a neutral term. Individuals who are labeled as being manipulative are deemed so because they consciously manipulate with purpose for purely selfish gain, thus the stigma against the word. But someone can also consciously manipulate with purpose in order to bring about a ceasefire and ultimately end the war.
How some situations play out depend on who is perceiving them and whether they are being perceived. Your ability to control the perception of others in such situations will allow you to manipulate events to resolve them peacefully or violently.
Think of manipulation as another one of your powers. Power is a spectrum, and it comes in many forms. Even the ability to walk is a form of power, as are your skills. The ability to read and write was once upon a time limited to a select few within the population. That made you significantly more powerful back then, but it's still a power nonetheless.
Skill does not always draw from the Force, but it is a measure of power nonetheless.
I was a KOTOR 1 and 2 fan for a long time, but the day I finally began to understand Kreia was the day I woke up and had a profound realization. So many things within human society are based entirely upon one's personal perspective. So many things that are often taken as fact are just someone's opinion. And yes, morality being chief among them.
You weaken yourself by pretending that morality is important to you.
Please don't misunderstand. I'm not arguing that morality isn't real. It's very real. It's just not consistent from person to person. It only takes one individual to disagree in order to transform something that is unverifiable into an opinion. But once I adopted this outlook, I started seeing it everywhere I go. Morality, healing, beauty, all predicated upon individual calculation.
Salvation is a relative thing.
Judgment is another one I hear a lot. When they hear the word, they automatically assume it to mean negative judgment. But without judgment, you wouldn't have any friends. If you're subscribed to my channel, didn't you judge me and the content I create as being worthy of your time?
The individual desires judgment. Without that desire, the cohesion of groups is impossible. And so is civilization.
After a while, there was no denying it, and now I'm self-aware of my own opinions. But sometimes I do still say things that lead me to catching myself afterwards, and realizing what it is I actually said is just my opinion. Conversations like this play out on the Discord server quite frequently. This very video wouldn't be the way it is without this very same topic coming up at one point. Thank you, Logical Functions Model 93. Perhaps one day more people will notice how much weight we put behind opinions, and that everyone has a different point of view. Hopefully then we can begin to understand each other a little better.
But let us be silent. Words and thoughts are distractions. Feel this moment, for as long as it will last. Feel life as it is, with the crude matter stripped away.